Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UN 2.0 side event from DPPA-DPO Information Management Unit. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure and honor to be invited to have a side event during the week of UN 2.0. In this session, you will hear from us, from Information Management Unit, on how to get the data in UN Peace and Security AI ready. So as you see that colleagues and friends are joining us both in person and online, we're going to do a quick Slido together with you. So if you could all log into slido.com and enter the code 5852882. And then we're going to quickly look at the questions and the responses. So maybe let's give it 3 minutes for all of you to start responding to the questions. Thank you.
The questions appear. Oh. Getting more answer?
Please.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Please. Hello. Please.
Yeah.
Okay,
1 second.
Hello. Yeah. Please join us, please. Okay, so colleagues in the room, colleagues who are joining, we have about 100 people online. So please, let's start with the Slido. We would love to see where you are joining us from. We have New York, Barcelona, Juba, Paris, India, Colombia, Spain, Pakistan. Thank you all for joining us. You're going to give it maybe 1 more minute as we see colleagues are joining. Canada, Trinidad, UK,
Ethiopia.
Cool. Okay, I see colleagues from IOM Brazil. Elisa, thanks for joining. I see hashtag White House. Welcome.
DC colleagues.
Ghana, Abia. Thank you, colleagues. I know it's quite late in Abia and Africa and Middle East. Really appreciate you, colleagues, joining us. Okay, so maybe let's look at the next question. What type of organization do you work in? So I see 100% international organization. Anyone from academia, private sector, government? Academia, we have in the room. Private sector, maybe you can write in the chat where you're connecting from. Oh, it's increasing. Thank you for joining us. Any private citizens on the call?
Right.
Okay, maybe a next question, please. What are your main challenges of working with data on peace and security? We see interoperability with Umoja. Okay, it's all going down. Yeah, data is not available or poor quality. Yes. Comparable taxonomy, unavailable data, the absence of complete data, lack of policy, data quality, timeliness, issues with reliability, quality of data, leadership buy-in. Yes. Get people to maintain the data. Very true. Duplication of data. Oh, there's a lot of challenges here.
Multilingual was listed.
Wow, that's a great one. Demonstrating impact. Very good. That's capacity in data. Very true. And we see now the keywords: availability, quality, reliability, credibility, accessibility, and capacity. These are the keywords that we see as you are all typing in your challenges. Okay. Technical data management tools. Very good. Yes. Very good. So I think you're all on the same page when it comes to challenges with data. And in this session, we would want to discuss how we kind of found ways to make our data ready for the future of AI. So we're going to have a quick introduction. Then we'll talk about how to make UN peace and security AI ready. Not just data, but also personnel and people. We'll have a quick demonstration on the data hub, and then we will be doing a use case using generative AI and the data from peace and security data hub. So if you're all ready, let's dive in. So thanks for the heart. So who we are, DPPA-DPO Information Management Unit. We provide policy and strategic advice on data and information management across the pillar. We also manage the central information management for critical information assets on behalf of both under secretary generals from the two departments. And of course, we have guidelines and policies in terms of supporting the disclosure of information to public. We also provide data analytics support for evidence-based processes. We provide support for data analytics solution. We help support colleagues who are making data publicly available. We have data guidelines, instructions on how to add data visualization in Secretary General's report. And of course, with huge thanks to IHAM and Janie, we manage Peace and Security Data Hub that you will be hearing about more. And also in close consultation with OICT, with DPO's Digital Enablement Team and DPPA's Innovation Cell, we provide integration, innovation, and change management. So you all have seen this a million times. I'm going to be very quick. So AI has been around since the 50s. And then it was going on and on and on. It was very academic and there was hope, but nobody knew what's going to happen now. So we had machine learning, 1997, it created a lot of excitement, but among data scientists, mathematicians, computer scientists. Then in 2012, deep learning was introduced. So which are layers of neural networks used for processing data and making decisions. And then in 2021, Gen AI was introduced, and it just created all this excitement around how AI can be democratized. And I think that's where we are at now. Next slide. So just quickly, within the UN, we've also been using what we call traditional AI for a while. So this is just an example of using machine learning algorithms for image recognition, looking at IDP camps and their expansion in our mission in UNMISS. This is a work that's done by UNOSAT in Geneva. So as you can see, back in 2013, this analysis was done to analyze the images using machine learning algorithm to see how the IDP camps expanded between the period of conflict. But back then, machine learning was very much used by data scientists. It required equipment, it required skill set. Mostly a bunch of PhDs were doing this type of work. But now what we are seeing is that Gen AI is changing. Gen AI is changing the nature of AI. It's making AI more accessible to all of us, including our parents and grandparents. So this is something that nobody ever thought about happening. So it is revolutionizing the accessibility and democratization of AI. So this is what Gen AI is doing. So, and this is the time that all of us as individuals and organizations with AI technologies without the need for deep technical expertise. Next one. So you've also seen this million times. It took a while for Netflix to get 1 million users. Spotify and others. But within 1 month, there were about 57 million users on ChatGPT that were registered on ChatGPT globally. So this really shows how easy, intuitive ChatGPT has been, that has had such huge number of users. And of course, I mean, the reality is that Gen AI is here to stay. We all know the massive investments that are happening from the corporate side, from the government side. So we need to adapt, and we need to see how we can leverage Gen AI responsibly between UN Peace and Security pillar. So this is UN 2.0 week. So what is it about? It's about strengthening our expertise and culture in data, digital innovation, foresight, and behavior science to build a UN system that can better support member states in the years to come. So this is SG's message, and this is SG's vision. And as you might have seen, UN 2.0 Quintet of Change has digital data, innovation, foresight, behavioral science as the core aspects of the work. And today in this session, we will be focusing on data and digital. How can we create a modern data skill set, ecosystem culture within peace and security, but also with the support from outside, such as academia, private sector, to help us implement our mandate in peace and security. So we believe that generative AI could evolve UN peacekeeping operations and enhance mandated activities by improving operational effectiveness, by managing some of those laborious tasks that requires a lot of manual work. We believe that it's going to free up a lot of time from our staff so that they can focus on more critical aspects of the work. It can help support data analysis and reporting by improving the speed and accuracy of reports based on accurate and reliable data that we have and we manage. It can help with language translation. Our peacekeepers come from more than 125 countries, and they're deployed in countries that sometimes they don't speak those languages. So how can we help support facilitating better communication? And of course, capacity building. How can we help use generative AI to train UN peacekeepers so that they're equipped with the technology, with the knowledge to help support the local populations and help support the mandates that they are operationalizing. But of course, none of that can be possible if we are not AI ready. So what does it mean for us at the UN? So we do have the green lights to use the technological advancement in line with SG's vision, as long as it supports UN values and human rights, as long as it's used responsibly, as long as we follow the guardrails, we can harness the potential of technology to better serve people and our planet. So within UN, Within UN Peace and Security, we intend to pursue a measured approach that encourages the ethical, responsible, and mandate-led use of AI tools. And we focus on keeping human in the loop. So this is the way we will be using Gen AI in our work. This is the way we are asked to use Gen AI in our work at the UN. And I've thrown a little image there that's from Gartner. But in order to be AI ready, we need to have AI ready security, AI ready data, and AI ready principles. And that's the challenge for us. And that's what we need to be focusing on. So just quickly letting you know about some of the guardrails policies that we currently have within the UN. We have Secretary General's Bulletin on Information Sensitivity, Classification, and Handling. We have last year, we got the UN Secretarial Guidelines on Responsible Use of Publicly Available Gen AI Tools. And just recently, in March, we received the Secretary General's Bulletin on Data Protection and Privacy Policy. So all of these come together hand in hand to help us secure our data, to help us use generative AI tools in a responsible manner. So again, if our data is not ready for AI, we are not ready for AI. We all know very well that machine learning algorithms, they use data to train. Supervised topic modeling, you need to train it based on a whole bunch of data. So if your data is not ready, if your data, as you all rightfully mentioned, if it's not up to date, if it's not reliable, if it's not accurate, you're not ready for AI. So how do we do it? Based on Gartner, to get your data AI ready, you need to have accurate, enriched, fair, I would add impartial, secure, and governed data. And we are trying to do that with our limited capacity in IMU. And I'll hand over to Iham to tell us how he does it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Avishan. So, information and data is actually the lifeblood of the organization. It has been since the inception and the first publication of the Secretary General's report. It's basically what we do. Is really at the core of the work of the United Nations to monitor mandated implementation of activities, to liaise with conflict parties, for instance, whether it's a ceasefire line and mapping whatever is happening in that context. It's actually think about a data intensive task. For the history of the organization, the past 75 years, that data has been published in the form of Secretary General's reports, a PDF document. Increasingly, those are containing data visualization. We'll talk a bit more about that. But at its core, it's a data-driven, endeavor. I just listed a few examples and pictures, whether it's a DDR process, a voting record in the Security Council, or perhaps a monitoring of ceasefire line, or a briefing from the Secretariat to the membership. All of those contain data. That's actually a voting record is data, a demobilization activity is data, et cetera, et cetera. So in this world of AI, I think there's a lot of opportunities for the United Nations as an information management enterprise to really leverage some of those capabilities. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So the way we do it with the Peace and Security Data Hub, you might ask, what is the Peace and Security Data Hub? The Peace and Security Data Hub is the Department of Peace Operation and Department of Peace Building and Critical Affairs open data portal. It's where we publish our data. It includes data that comes from the organization or its organization's partners. So a specific office might partner with an academic enterprise to make certain types of data available. And it's where it needs to live. It was launched in 2021 by colleagues who are also in this room, who helped put it in motion and it's a response to the Secretary General's data strategy. For UN staff, it's a place where you can publish and share your data in a governed environment. So if you have data, whatever type of mandated activity you are involved in. Maybe it's related to gender, demining, and you want to get your data out to the public. Instead of setting up your own website and with all those headaches, we encourage people to make sure it lives inside the Peace and Security Data Hub, where it's in a governed environment. We know where it's updated. We know who owns it, who's responsible and accountable for it. And then for the public, it's a free public library of open data on peace and security. And there's a bunch of different use cases for that. We'll go into those discussions in a second. So this is a typical problem, which is not unique to the UN. It's any large enterprise will have this problem. Data is often ungoverned, is distributed in informal channels. Sometimes they're shared via email correspondence. You don't know who updated these figures last year. You don't know what was the methodology. It's easy to get lost in the weeds. And in that world, you have to maintain a lot of collegial relationships in order to continue to have access to the data that you need to have access to do your work. Now, this increases the time and cost of any data analysis, not only within the organization, but also for the clients that we serve, the people who consume our data in the Secretary General's consume the Secretary General's report or consume our data in any other way. It's a laborious, intensive process, which means that there's a lot of insights that might not actually be generated that could have been generated. And so we want to come to this world where our data is AI ready. It's where we know what the single source of truth is. We know who's publishing the authoritative canonized version of this or that data set. And it's in a governed environment where we know we can trust it at any point in time. We know that it won't be misused because it's published with disclaimers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the world we want to get to. And actually, that world also there are some opportunities there, because in a world with a lot of maybe disinformation, maybe increased geopolitical competition, there is a premium on authoritative data. If you can publish and make your data available as an impartial data provider, that's something that we have seen, at least with the Peace and Security Data Hub. That's something that there's a lot of demand for. And it's also in line with how the UN actually operates. We publish data and information in our Secretary General's reports as an impartial data provider, because we ask to monitor, verify, and report on situations on behalf of the Security Council, or we are in one of the other type of function of the organization. We're asked to produce evidence for the work that we are doing. Peace and Security Data Hub is where that evidence would then ultimately come to live. In 2024, already 4 UN missions are providing data visualization as part of their reporting. So that's data visuals that are included in the Secretary General's report. They will also automatically be fed into the Peace and Security Data Hub. So we see that data ecosystem slowly growing. So there's a couple of benefits to work with public data, and I just want to go over what those are. First off, as an organization, there is already existing clearance procedures for how we make our data public. We publish information. I think I have a few references listed there. So it's nothing new to the organization. It's just new to the organization that it is in a data format and a machine-readable format, which we've only been doing for the past 3 years, at least in these 2 departments. Our data stewards are the data owners, so big shout out to them. They're the ones who produce the data and vouch for the credibility and accountability of the data, are accountable for the data. They are, in many cases, interested in themselves putting their data out there. They just might not know exactly where or how. Because it's public data, we host public data on Peace and Security Data Hub. If you want to release data to the public through the regular work that you do, that's basically, we offer you that opportunity. And then I think one of the most important levers of public data that we have is that open data helps us leverage the analytical capacity that is available in the academic community. So there was a recent, I think, forthcoming OIS impact evaluation report, soon to be released, that mentions specifically if the UN makes its data, operational data, available to the public, it invites scrutiny, which is good for the health of the organization. It is also good for the ability to measure our own impact, or make sure that we are doing what we are set in the world to do. And a lot of that analytical capacity can't live only within the organization. We simply don't have the manpower to analyze a lot of the data that we actually produce and make insightful recommendations on the back of that. But that's where the academic community, which I see is present here, is it's helpful. That's of course only the tip of the iceberg, because that's the public part of the work. Prior to the point where you can get to, as an organization, to publish your data, there's a bunch of stuff and tasks that need to take place. We'll talk a little bit about that. So where are we? And we'll get to the demo in a minute. But since our team took over the Peace and Security Data Hub in 2022, we've seen a few advancements, which we're excited to share. We've established we're maintaining currently 3 research partnerships on data, one with the United Nations University, thank you for showing up here, and King's College London, and as well as University of Cambridge, which was established by the Innovation Cell on the language of peace. We've tripled the number of monthly downloads. I think we're seeing about 228 downloads from the Peace and Security Data Hub per month. There's also a bigger chunk, probably 3 times as large, downloads from the Humanitarian Data Exchange. So we have established a partnership with the Humanitarian Data Exchange to make sure that whenever we publish our data within our sphere of work, it also gets published to the Humanitarian Data Exchange automatically. And we will see more of those kind of open data portals. We'll push our data more and more into the various open data portals that are available out there for us to be able to publish our data, make sure it's being used by a wider community. We have doubled the number of data sets. I think we're at 65 or 66 now that are publicly available. There's a few other reference and master data sets that are used internally, but we can those can also soon be made available to the public. And then finally, we've doubled the number of roughly doubled the number of users. We have doubled the number of page views, but we're also seeing users, it's not really listed here, but across the world, predominantly in the US, but also in China, Russia, India, all over Europe, parts of Africa, South America as well. Usage is actually growing quite rapidly for the Peace and Security Data Hub. And of course, all of this is, the ability for us as an organization to publish data is precipitated by a lot of very active colleagues who are working on some very important projects and programs that seek to increase our overall digital literacy and data literacy. These are projects and programs that rely on data. So you might recognize A4P+, you might recognize the Innovation Cell, who've been active in this area for a long time. You might recognize CPAS, who's also here today. Thank you so much. But who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes to enable the organization to have these kind of critical capabilities. And of course, the digital transformation of peacekeeping is hugely important in this regard. And then finally, the Peace and Security Data Hub is available in all 6 official UN languages. We are pretty proud of that, and because the future of the UN is multilingual. So, okay, so what we have all this data living on the hub. What might be the use cases? So. Overall, 65 data sets. We encourage people to join. Maybe Jane, you can add and send a link in the chat for the Peace and Security Data, in case people want to know. Easier access to authoritative data for your evidence-based decisions. Whether you're in a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or maybe you're a development organization, or maybe you're an NGO somewhere that needs to partner with the UN. You might be able to find authoritative data on both the, for instance, peace building, which we have data on the peace building activities of the UN and down to the country level. If you're a member state, you might want to know what is the status of our request in the C34 Committee on Peacekeeping. We track that on the Peace and Security Data Hub because there's an office who wants to share the data. If you work on the Women, Peace and Security agenda, a couple of authoritative data sets are actually being shared on that, where you can track the health of that agenda over time. Providing data for planning and evaluation, and for planning and evaluating effectiveness. So one data set that's currently being published to the Peace and Security Data Hub is this data set on peacekeeping mandates, in which we can actually see how the peacekeeping mandates have evolved over time and how they've changed. Now, because it lives on the Peace and Security Data Hub, we can make that available as an analytical solution with our other data products, right? So you can see how might mandates evolve in conjunction with budgeting, or might evolve in conjunction of civilian components to peacekeeping operations, et cetera, et cetera. This is data that's produced by the academic community based on original Secretary General's reports, or sorry, this one particular on Security Council resolutions. And they're making that available to us through the Peace and Security Data Hub through a partnership. We current research with UNU on the peacekeeping effectiveness. How does the composition of peacekeeping force, gender, regional, civilian versus military component, how much does that actually impact our ability to overall reduce conflicts, number of violent incidents, because we have ACLED to correlate that with. Those are the kind of types of research that you can now do, start evaluating the UN in a much more sort of evidence-based manner than we were able to do previously. Yeah, so, the peacekeeping in particular, but a lot of the peace and security activities that the UN undertakes require a very big stakeholder coalition to maintain. It is actually, we do information management and data in many ways, to corral a very comprehensive, kind of diverse stakeholder coalition. And that's where I think we, giving that evidence out to the membership is one way by which we can make sure that at least when they come to the meetings, when they come to the rooms, when they sit down and talk to their counterparts, they are talking on the basis of the same factual data that we have provided to them. It comes from the canonized authoritative source within the UN. It's not some person that you know or some character you've had coffee with who's giving you the information. It lives and exists live on the Peace and Security Data Hub for you to use. There's a couple of examples from UNSAM, the human rights situation in Somalia. They're publishing data on that I think 3 times a year. Monthly mission air assets might be used by humanitarians to know where there are flights available, where they can reach out to a mission in case they need flights and it's aligned with the UN mandate. Expenditure. How much does it cost to run a peacekeeping operation, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things that we now live on the Peace and Security Data Hub. A lot of those items lived as well in the past, but just in obscure PDF documents in one or the other subcommittee of a subcommittee that people in the public might not actually be able to do. Those are the use cases that I can think of, but there's a whole host of other use cases that we don't even know about because it's open data. We are creating a repository of open data. And the users will be the public, it will be member states, it will be people who work on peace and security in one shape or form, and we don't know what that might look like. We know of a few interesting use cases already from the State Department and elsewhere. They might be able to speak to that in other events, in other contexts, but there's an innovation horizon there where we can innovate and figure out how colleagues might be using our data on peace and security. And I think with that, I'll actually hand over to Janie for a little bit of a live demonstration of the hub. I'm not sure how many of you have seen it, but let's have just a few minutes just to see what it actually looks like, and I will take us through that. Over to you, Janie.
All right. I think everyone can hear me. So our website is psdata.un.org. On the top right corner, you'll see all the 16 languages. So as you click through them, the page gets translated, although not all sections are translated as of yet. Right, now we would start by clicking Find Dataset. I'd like to show you one of our more popular dataset, which is the uniformed personnel. So when you click on it, the first thing you see is a metadata page. So this would show the description, the update frequency, the originating office. In this case, it's from Office of Military Affairs. You can see the start date and you can see the latest day it was updated. So in this case, although it says a monthly update frequency, the last update was January because it takes some time to verify the numbers. You can also see any limitations and exceptions that you may have to take in mind when you look at the data and do some analysis. The next tab is a data preview. So this would show the first 5,000 rows of the dataset, showing you all the columns and like sample data for you to have an idea of what the data looks like. Under that is column definitions. For this particular dataset, it's a bit straightforward. So what would be useful is the attributes of the personnel type, because there's different types of personnel that countries contribute. And if you want to know the exact definitions of each, you can see it from here. The next tab is the visualization page. So as you have seen from the presentation earlier, we have quite a few visualizations ready-made already. And for this one, it was great to see the contributions by country. So you can see it evolve over time. You can see different types of charts. So you kind of understand more of the underlying data. And if you want to do your own analysis, you can head over to the download page. We have it available in 3 types, CSV, JSON, and XML. You can also just copy the links to plug it into your favorite visualization tools, such as Power BI. One other data set I want to show, which you have seen a bit of already earlier, is the human rights in Somalia, just because this one is pulled from a Secretary General report. So it would have a start date and an end date. Head on over to the data preview. We can see number of civilian casualties, fatalities, and other indicators. Now, if you want to understand what they mean, you can just head on over to the column definitions. You can see the differences. And if you go to visualization, you can see some charts about it. So this not only has charts, but some figures that would be useful. And we also have the actual document symbols and the paragraphs from the report. So you can validate. And again, you can head over to the download. One other thing is the contact us page. So if you have any questions about any data set, or if you see any issues with the website, please contact us through this form. And that concludes the demo. I would hand it over to Avishan for the Gen AI use case.
Thank you very much, Ihama Janie. So this is talking about capacity. This is our capacity in DPPA-DPO Information Management Unit to manage peace and security data hub, of course, with support from so many amazing data owners who are there, who are sharing their data with us. So now we are going to, and a huge thanks to 120 of you, more than 120 colleagues, and also colleagues in the room who have joined us and who stayed with us. Now I'm gonna quickly show you a few examples of how we can use the data from Peace and Security Data Hub together with ChatGPT to do some analysis. So I am gonna. So I'm using an example which is quite exciting. It's from our mission fatalities. And this is the data from peacekeepers' fatalities in peacekeeping operations, special political missions since 1948. I mean, these are brave peacekeepers who sacrificed their lives while serving in some of the most challenging and dangerous conflict environments and striving to maintain peace and security around the world. And of course, their commitment, their sacrifices of these peacekeepers remain essential for the global stability, especially during these times of conflict. More than ever, we need our peacekeepers to be there to help and support with the mandate implementation. So the example that I'm going to show you is a data set, one of the data set that goes all the way back to the early days of peacekeeping operations. So as Janie showed, this is the page. This is where you can have a data preview, visualize, and download the data. So for the sake of this presentation, I'm using the CSV file. But of course, I, like many of you, are very much a huge fan of using APIs because you kind of keep the plumbing going, keep the waters running, and you don't have to worry about getting the data updated or coming back and checking with the source. So I highly recommend you who are data practitioners to always use our APIs because some of these data sets, we need to go back and make some adjustments as the status of some of these incidents change over time. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm using a CSV file. So I'm going to quickly upload the data in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to first review the data set. This is something that we often do as we are using ChatGPT. Of course, again, in line with UN guidelines, we only use generative AI tools with public-facing data because the data is already publicly facing. So right now, as you can see, ChatGPT, this is GPT-4 also, just to highlight, this feature is within GPT-4, is analyzing the data set, analyzing different columns, and also identifiers such as the ID. I mean, as most of us data people, we definitely want to know what is that unique identifier. If you want to do joins, if you want to count, so we need to know what is that unique identifier. And one good things about GPT-4 is that, I mean, and again, whatever I'm showing to you now might change tomorrow. As you all know, OpenAI is so quickly changing some of these technologies. So this is as of today, everything that we see. One thing that I really like about using GPT-4 is that it shows data types and completeness. So, and also it gives you kind of a quick overview of what type of data you have without you having to open the file or looking at the data itself. So it kind of gives you that feeling. As you see on the next step, it also gives you some suggestions. We could explore the distribution of incidents over time by nationality or by type of incidents. Also, it can show you information by gender, by nationality of the casualties. So these are some ideas that is helping you to design your prompt. So I am just going to copy and paste my prompt in the chat. It's kind of like a cooking class where you prepare everything ahead of time and it will show. So I'm asking to list the top 3 missions with the highest number of fatalities caused by incidents categorized as malicious acts. So as you can see, it quickly analyzes the data for you. It lists the top 3 missions as I've asked it for to show what are those 3 missions that have the highest number of fatalities caused by malicious acts. So MINUSMA, 174 fatalities, ONUC, 135, UNOSOM, 114. So I think for me, for the next stage, it's important to know the duration. Like, what was the duration when 174 fatalities happened in MINUSMA? Can you tell me, can you give me a line chart? I'm a huge fan of visualizing data to see the data, the trends over time. So I'm asking GPT-4 to generate a line chart to display the number of fatalities caused by incidents categorized as malicious acts against the year of the incident only for MINUSMA, because that's the kind of a question I have. And as you know, as the data scientists out there, you often work with a hypothesis. There's a hypothesis that you have in mind that the business is asking you. So you need to start diving deeper into those questions by trying to find out the answers. So as you can see, you can easily visualize the data. So I don't know how many Python colleagues, friends we have there online. So you can always, of course, use the Python codes from here to copy and paste it in your Jupyter notes if you want to do an analysis. And colleagues sometimes ask me, like, how can we use generative AI for data that is not publicly available to us, to the world? One thing you could do is to create sanitized data without exposing the data. Just create a data model and just create some synthetic data, and then run your GPT prompts, get the queries from Python, and then run it on your local to see how to save times in terms of writing Python codes. So that's one way to go about using the data. And of course, there are people like myself who are SQL geeks, who always like to see the queries in SQL. So if you're managing an Azure instance with the SQL, you want to see the SQL query, you want to run it locally, this is kind of the way to go about it. So this is the exact SQL query that you could use to analyze the data based on this specific query that you have. And I personally, and I don't know what you all think, I personally think the generative AI, there's an advantage to it in terms of getting people who might not have had the expertise in Python, in SQL on board with analyzing data. In the past, maybe I would say last year, most of us had to know SQL, most of us had to know Python to be able to do some advanced data analysis. But now with generative AI, with ChatGPT, it's easy to kind of use prompts based on your data sets to ask questions against the data that you upload on GPT. So I'm going to pause here. I know we have some questions for you on a Slido, and we want to hear from you. I know we are a big group, so it would be hard to open the floor for all of you to speak, and I hope we do get the opportunity in the future to hear from all of you. But for now, we're going to use a Slido to hear some of your thoughts. I'll hand over to you, please. Thank you.
Let me just get Slido up and running. 1 second.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Okay, I see Vika summarized. That's exactly the same. Thank you, colleagues. If you have ideas, if you do things differently, please do share them in chat, because here we want to have an interactive session. We want to hear from you and how you all analyze your data. Please let us know your thoughts.
There we go. Okay, so one question is, what kind of open data on peace and security would you like to see on the Data Hub? Oh, here we go. Interesting. Yeah, confidential data. We are a public-facing tool, so there's no confidential data on the Peace and Security Data Hub. We are entirely separated from, like, church and state. I think it's what you call it in cybersecurity terms. It's we don't have any availability of data that is confidential, that lives inside our ecosystem.
So an effectiveness of civil affairs activity, we have quick impact projects as a data set.
Yeah.
That is there, but in terms of impact, yes, I think that's a question. Training activity.
Correlation, I think correlations, it's up to you as an analyst to identify your own correlations, but there is training data, and there's also data on at least peacekeeper casualties. For other types of casualties, you probably need to go to other databases like ACLED. There was a question in the room.
Yes, I noticed you had that there have been 4 cases that you've used data visualization tools for SG reports. And I was wondering what the member states' reaction was and whether you think this is where all the mission reports are heading towards.
Yeah, and I think also CPAS colleagues. So there's a lot of push from member states to see impact, evidence, fact. And that's why more and more of our missions are incorporating data visualization within Secretary General's report. And that's, I mean, huge thanks to our colleague David, of course, from CPAS team, who's been supportive. I don't know, CPAS, from CPAS, you want to add?
I mean, I think, yeah, so far, so MINUSCO just did their first one. So now there's 5, UNPSIP, UNDOF, UNIFIL, MINUSCA, and MINUSCO. I would say we've gotten good feedback from most of them. We haven't gotten any negative feedback. I would say, like, for a couple like MINUSCO, we already had another product that were like fact sheets that are like kind of just visualizations that also went to the council at the same time. Those included a lot more visuals. So I think we got a more tepid response from having them in the report proper, because the Security Council was already getting more detailed visuals from those, where we didn't have anything else. Where there are no fact sheets, it's been very positive, the response. But I think there's still a desire for more. And, you know, there's obviously people like, well, can we have data on this? Can we have data on this? It's not always available, or it's questionable. So it's like a work in progress.
Okay, thank you.
Do you maintain data lineage information for each data set? We do maintain the originating office for each data set, and that's, I think, part of having it in a governed environment. Missions, yeah, exactly.
You have a
Yeah,
question?
that's a very important question. Thank you so much for asking. Validation of the analysis by ChatGPT. Absolutely. I mean, we are all very much mindful of the hallucination, the biases, all the challenges on ChatGPT. And we definitely have to make sure that we double check with the experts who are the subject matter experts on the topics, on the issues. That's very much in line with our guardrails on use of publicly available generative AI tools. Thank you so much for asking.
Jump to the next one.
Okay, yes, let's move to the next question, please. What is the most important feature of the hub if you're using the hub?
If we have enough interested for the question, maybe people in the room, please feel free to also join the voting. Okay. Yeah, the visuals are important, it seems. It's good. Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Discoverability with the
HDX.
Yeah.
Yes, and huge shout out to our colleagues in HDX. I mean, they've done such a fantastic job in providing humanitarian data in a format that is readily used during the crisis. So huge thanks to them, and we made sure that we established that partnership thanks to IHOM.
Maybe just to know, we didn't speak about it too much, but it's a bit of a technical term, but we do have APIs, and there's guides to how to connect to those on the website. It's an application programming interface. It means that you can do a live connection with the piping from the imagine like water tube, connecting the data that lives on the Peace and Security Data Hub straight into whatever might be your internal analytical platform, whether you are an academic or you are a State Department or foreign ministry official. You can now have access to the latest Security Council resolution, the latest vetoes, whatever it might be on a particular topic or country issue you might be interested in following. You can have that through APIs. And that's also how we push our data to the Humanitarian Data Exchange. So if you get it from there or you get it from our website, we don't really care. Even if in the future we might go on data.un.org, if that's the direction of travel, we're happy to live there as well. The important part is all this back-end work that we do to put our data in an AI-ready format, and we can push it out to whoever needs to consume it by any platform that is needed for internal UN consumption. You can soon, hopefully, get it through directly in Excel or directly in Power BI as a validated data set on our internal data platform. Good. This was useful.
Yes, and maybe we go to the last question. What features would you like to see on the Peace and Security Data Hub? So this is the time to let us know what you think, what you would like to see on the Peace and Security Data Hub. So we try our best with our small capacity to make it happen. So please let us know what features you would like to see on Peace and Security Data Hub.
There we go.
And I'm assuming that is
The DESAs.
DESA, data.un.org, yes.
So data.un.org is a bit different than what we do in the Peace and Security Data Hub. Data.un.org is specialized in statistical data from the development system. And we are mostly publishing operational data about the US peace and security pillar, or incident reports or reporting from the Secretary General's report on issues related to peace and security. But if the technical platform is made available to us, we're happy to make it our data, surface our data through that platform as well. Very much big fans of the integrated data ecosystem for peace and security.
Exactly. I like the suggestion on the methods of data collection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's quite interesting. I mean, I think we can create a page to highlight ways that you can collect data in a reliable manner using low code, no code, perhaps. I mean, and that would be a discussion that YCT colleagues, there would be a side event on low code, no code that you might want to attend, because we very much in peace and security rely on what I call boutique data. The value is in the small data. Big data, we often don't get to see the value the small data sets bring in. And in order to collect the small, high quality, reliable, unbiased data, there needs to be easy ways to do so. And there are some solutions around it. And I think that would be great for us to keep that in mind and perhaps share it on publicly. Colleagues, I see a lot coming in. Thank you.
The data set popularity, we are actually already collecting that data. We just haven't made it publicly available because we don't want to discourage. We're still in the very early stages. We've only been around for 3 years, so we don't want to discourage anyone who might not see a lot of usage from the data yet. But we do have it already, and if for the few colleagues who are interested, they can ask about the usage statistics. We can make those available upon request. Mission mandate and implementation on progress. Those are big ticket items, not possible outside of the mandate of our little unit. But if that is being produced somewhere, we will happily make it available. Security data.
And show the source documents where the data might be pulled. We do have
We
that.
do that.
Right?
That's
Yes.
already being,
Yes.
of course, we do include the source documents. I mean, anytime we pull data from a SG report, we do include the source document, so you can verify yourself.
Yeah,
And actually, that's one way we use AI to pull the data from the PDF documents and the SG report.
exactly. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Very interesting data readiness indicator for Gen AI.
That is very interesting.
That's very interesting. Is there an index? Does anyone know if there's a data readiness index?
I think there's a couple of different consultancy firms who prepare different types of organizational assessments to figure out whether your organization is ready for AI. And we could definitely consider that as part of our work to figure out to what extent are we ready for it.
Yeah. And that's an excellent point, because some of our data sets that goes all the way back in time, it has some missing elements. For example, collection of data, contribution data in a gender disaggregated format only started in 2010 and after. So the data that we have prior to 2010 is not gender disaggregated, and we do have some missing data sets. So that's why sometimes you see we have separated some of our data sets.
Links to resources other than other trusted data. So we do have a few links to reputable data sources on the Peace and Security Data Hub, but we link to ACFLED, we link to the World Bank, the Humanitarian Data Exchange, and others. So if you are a budding new data analyst, you're looking for data on peace and security, you'll be able to find sort of the most biggest reputable data sources available on the Peace and Security Data Exchange, Peace and Security Data. What we don't do is we don't publish those data sets as our own. We just make a link available and let people happily go fetch on their own. So.
And showing the gaps where data was not collected, I think that's also really interesting. I know Janie and you put a text where there might be some gaps or some areas that the users need to pay attention to. I think that's definitely really important to highlight the gaps and challenges with some of the data sources. I know there are a lot of great comments and questions in the chat. We probably need to take them offline because I know we only have 1 more minute left. So if there's anything else you think we should hear from you, please post it in the chat. And let's continue this conversation. This is a partnership, as clearly highlighted by Secretary General. We need to partner with academia, with private sector, with other UN agencies, funds, and programs to move UN peace and security into a more digital, data savvy, and responsible AI-ready pillars. So we're very much looking forward for your collaboration and your partnership. Thank you so much all for joining us. It was a wonderful pleasure to organize this side event together with my excellent team. And huge thanks to Julia, our fantastic intern, Janie, and Iham for
Thank you
joining,
so much.
and everyone else in the room and online. Thank you all.